Alvin C. York. That's probably not a name you're familiar with, but he was in fact one of the most decorated soldiers of the US Army in World War I. He received the Medal of Honor for leading an attack on German machine gun nests that would see him and his troops take over 35 machine guns, kill at least 28 German soldiers and capture another 130. What's interesting about Alvin York though is his life prior to his enlistment. He was born in Tennessee and was the third child of 11. That's a big family. Mama was not stopping for anyone. His family was poor, and when his father died in 1911, Alvin helped his mother in raising his younger siblings. He worked railroad construction and as a logger to supplement the family income, and by all accounts he was a skilled worker devoted to his family. Alvin's mother though was a member of a pacifist Protestant denomination, so as you can see he was in a slight predicament when it came to the war. He went to church himself, and while his church had no specific doctrines on pacifism, they did oppose all forms of violence. Ironic actually, considering he was known as a bit of a nasty alcoholic that would get into bar fights. Even still, his church commitments left him quite the problem. His reaction to the First World War was quoted as being this: "I was worried clean through. I didn't want to go and kill. I believed in my Bible." Despite that, on June 5th, 1917, and at the age of 29, Alvin York registered for the draft, as all men between the ages of 21 and 31 were required to do. When he registered, he was required to fill in the question, "Do you claim exemption from draft specified grounds?" He answered, "Yes, I don't want to fight," but his initial claim for conscientious objector was denied. That sounds like a confusing term, but basically it's an individual who's claimed the right to refuse to perform military service. Some countries may assign these people to an alternative civilian service as a substitute. He of course appealed. In the First World War, conscientious objector would not exempt you from military service, but instead you would be drafted into assignments that would not conflict with your anti-war principles. While his first request was considered, he was drafted to the military and began his service at Camp Gordon. As you could imagine, he was troubled and torn between his pacifism and his duties of war. His company commander and his battalion commander offered support, but it was biblical passages about violence that would eventually force him to reconsider his participation in the war. He was given a 10-day leave to visit home, and upon returning, he was convinced that his God meant for him to fight in the war and that he would be kept safe. As such, York served in Company G, 328th Infantry Regiment, 82nd Infantry Division. So then, it was time. Alvin went to war, and it was his actions along the Decauville rail line north of Châtel-Chehery, France on October 8th where his battalion were tasked with capturing German positions that would earn him his Medal of Honor. Under the command of Sergeant Bernard Early, 13 privates and 4 non-commissioned officers, including recently promoted Corporal Alvin York, were ordered to infiltrate the German lines to take out several machine gun emplacements. The soldiers fought hard and managed to make their way behind the German lines and overran the HQ of a German unit there. They managed to capture a significant amount of German soldiers who were preparing a counterattack against US troops. All of a sudden, while Early's men were dealing with the prisoners, they hear sudden machine gun fire peppering the area they were staying in. It was coming from a German machine gun placement on a nearby ridge, and it led to the death of 6 Americans and a further 3 more were wounded. Now, the loss of these 9 soldiers put York in charge of the remaining 7. He left his men in cover guarding the prisoners while he worked his way into position to deal with the German machine guns. This is what Alvin had to say about that day. "Those machine guns were spitting fire and cutting down the undergrowth all around me, something awful, and the Germans were yelling orders. You never heard such a racket in all of your life. I didn't have time to dodge behind a tree or dive into the brush. As soon as the machine guns opened fire on me, I began to exchange shots with them. There were over 30 of them in continuous action, and all I could do was touch the Germans off just as fast as I could. I was sharpshooting. All the time I kept yelling at them to come down. I didn't want to kill any more than I had to, but it was they or I, and I was giving them the best that I had." So this guy may have not wanted to hurt anyone at first, but he was sure giving it all that he could now. Whilst he assaulted the German machine guns, 6 German soldiers in a trench charged him with fixed bayonets. York had fired all of the rounds he had available in his M1917 Enfield rifle, but then he drew out his M1911 pistol and shot all 6 soldiers before they could reach him. Imagine 6 German soldiers running towards you with bayonets equipped, looking for blood. It's going to take a calm man with an impeccable aim to be able to shoot all 6 of them before they can reach you. Somehow though, Alvin C. York kept his cool and he managed it. Paul Jürgen Vollmer was commander of the German 1st Battalion 120th Landwehr Infantry, and he emptied his entire pistol magazine trying to kill York while he was dealing with machine guns, but he failed to injure him, and after seeing his losses climb, he offered to surrender to York, which he accepted. By the time the assault had concluded, York and his fellow soldiers took 132 German soldiers prisoner and back to the American lines. According to York, he was greeted by his brigade commander, General Julian R. Lindsay, who said, "Well, York, I hear you've captured the whole damn German army," to which he replied, "No sir, I only got 132. Brilliant. His actions on that day, silencing the German machine guns, were responsible for enabling the 328th Infantry to renew its attack to capture the Decauville Railroad. He was promptly promoted to sergeant and received the Distinguished Service Cross. After a few months, that was upgraded to the Medal of Honor, and he would also receive the French Croix de Guerre. From the day Alvin registered for the draft until he returned home from the war in 1919, he kept a diary of his activities. He also claimed that he refused to sign documents provided by his pastor seeking a discharge from the army on religious grounds, and on his return, he told General Lindsay, "A higher power than man guided and watched over me and told me what to do." And in fact, Alvin's diary is available to read online, and it makes for some interesting reading if you ever get a chance. I'll link it down in the description below if you're interested in taking a look. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this little look at Alvin C. York, America's own badass of World War I. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, that would be amazing. If you didn't, a thumbs down, and I'll see you in the next one.